Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the press conference for the Nasir Jones HipHop Fellowship. I'm going to be moderating this discussion, but can we all just welcome Professor Morgan, Mr. Nasir Jones, and Professor Skip Gates. So quickly, I'm just going to give you a rundown of the Hip Hop Archive. It was officially established at Harvard University in 2002 under the direction of Professor Marcelina Morgan, with the purpose to support and establish the emerging scholarship on the art, culture, and knowledge of hip hop and its followers. The Nasir Jones HipHop Fellowship is designed to provide students and artists with the opportunity to demonstrate that education is real power. It builds upon the achievements of those who have demonstrated exceptional capacity for productive scholarship and creative ability in the arts with relation to hip hop. And now, one of my name is Christian, and I am a junior at this college. I'm trying to focus on the people who matter. But my first question is directed to you, Professor Morgan and Professor Skip Gates. What inspired the creation of this fellowship, and what were the initial steps taken for its development?
Marcy, you want to start?
Well, the idea of hip-hop in a university setting is very much associated with the incorporation of research and the development of the interaction between hip-hop and all that goes on at universities and colleges. Because we know that universities really value anything that's associated with research itself. It's important for us to support faculty and artists who are working in hip-hop. And so the idea was, let's see how a particular fellowship would work at the archive. So we did minor things in the beginning to see if we could attract people, how the institution, what we needed to do to interact with the institution to get them to understand we're talking about serious scholarship, and making sure that there's an interaction between scholars and artists who come as hip-hop scholars and artists and all the other scholars and artists that come into this particular setting. And as it became clear that it was very productive for all concerned, one of the things that we started thinking about was then how to really focus on that and formulate that in a way that we understand and the world can understand the importance of hip-hop within educational settings as well as within the entire creative community.
See, we have the Hutchins Center has 12 fellows who come each semester, and we can award them up to $50,000 for the year. So you have professors who have sabbatical. And for those of you who don't know, every 7 years at most universities, if you're a full professor, you get a paid either semester off or half your salary for a whole year vacation. But it's not like a vacation. You're supposed to go and write a book or do your research. And there are different think tanks, research centers. And this is the greatest one in our field of African and African American studies. So as the director of the center, what I'm looking for are ways to fund these fellowships. So I got an idea, and I said to Marcy started the fellowship, the Hip Hop Fellowship program, and it was a runaway success, Nas. But a university like Harvard thinks of endowment. You think of a big chunk of money and you live off the interest, so that whatever you're doing will be here forever. And as I was mentioning, my buddy from Yale, Bert Cooper, an African, gave us $2.5 million to endow the art gallery, which when you go out will be right next door at 102 Mount Auburn Street. And I was talking to Marcy. Marcy and Larry are my best friends. Every Sunday night I have dinner at their house. And, we drink a lot of wine, talk a lot of shit, and that's just the way it is. Shit, that is a high academic word. Doesn't mean the same thing it means in hip-hop land, And and we have a board of directors, and many of those people are very successful. So one of the guys, we can't say who, was an anonymous person, was a good friend, and he happens to love hip-hop. And so I talked to him about it. Marcy and Larry and I had dinner at his house, and he loves Nas. He said, Nas Jones is the man. And he said he would be interested in funding this as long as he could do it in Nas's name and in honor of Nas as a tribute to his intellectual abilities and capacities. So not only his talent as an artist, which is one thing, but his intelligence as an artist, too. Isn't that amazing? One, that somebody was generous enough to pony up the money, and then two, even more generous to do it in the name of someone else, and three, to do it because he thinks this man's a genius. And so he said it's a done deal, and that's why we're here. We contacted Nas, and Nas said, nah, name it in honor of Jay-Z. No, I'm just And Nas said deal. And Nas and I had met before because we'd had dinner, which was arranged by the same person, and we really hit it off. Turns out we're both Virgos. Our birthdays are 2 days apart. He's slightly older than I am. And he's going to be a guest in my new Roots series, Finding Your Roots, which I'm very excited about. And so it was a done deal. And but really, it was all because of Marcy's inspiration. It was like dominoes falling over. She created this program, and that's why we were all here. Is that right, Marcy?
That's right.
Well, I'm actually here because I thought I was meeting Cornell West.
Yeah, very good. Touché. Touché. Well, my brother, I got a haircut. I used to have an afro, man. I had a 2-foot-high afro. My West afro looked like a crew cut next to my afro.
Let's refocus. We're going to get to the afro.
So volleying off of that, Mr. Jones, what were your initial reactions to receiving the call and discovering that this fellowship is being made in your name?
Like, I was, speechless. Speechless. It was like, I responded very quickly. Like, yes, I was definitely excited about it.
In a nanosecond email. I mean, it was just like, we do, boom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll grab your attention. Professor Morgan, in what ways does Mr. Jones' career reflect the purpose and the vision of this fellowship?
For us, there are many ways. I do want to say that when a number of faculty found out that we were doing this, I could not believe some of their reaction to it, in that the emails came in with their favorite lines from Nas's, very, wide body of work. And I was, spent a couple of days just laughing because I was like, you have a Nas quote, and Nas, and like, this is the most important moment of my life and all of this. And these are, very successful, highbrow kind of acting people. And I just was floored at that. And virtually all the subject lines were, whose world is it, and all of that just kept coming in. So it was just one of those moments where you realize that hip-hop has been around a long time. And hip-hop, at different points in time, has been in the popular press, in the public eye, framed in a way that wasn't really all that was happening in hip-hop and didn't reflect the power of hip-hop and the influence of hip-hop. And when you look at an artist and poet like Nas, who, I want to say a little bit about why we say brilliance and genius and things like that. First of all, it's true, but this is Harvard, and we actually say that a lot. Very often it's about ourselves, and sometimes it's not true. But, in this particular case, I think it's absolutely true, because there's this aspect of, so what does it mean to have a fellowship at Harvard? What does it mean to do Hip-Hop Archive at Harvard? And what it means is to work at the highest possible level and not flinch when you're dealing with the world in reality. You keep going forward. Harvard's a place that I think, in the different universities that I've worked in, it's unique in that it really encourages you to do that. And there isn't this notion of, it makes me uncomfortable if I'm not at your level. It's like, keep going, keep working. You don't stop. You want to make a contribution to the world. And if you look at Nas's body of work, you know, what he has done is consistently worked through all those things. It's not about did he get a degree or did I get a degree. It's like, am I delivering on this particular promise? Am I working based on my understanding of the world, and I'm able to represent that and represent other people and really provide support? Because if you think about something like One Mic, and you think about the Arab Spring, and if you do research on that, you know, these are just like One Mic people. They're like, well, Nas and One Mic, and it is the most amazing thing that you see the inspiration that happens because of the work and the genius of someone. And that is what we're all about. That's what we want to promote. We want young people, especially, to always think, no matter what, you know, whether it's the One Mic concept or no matter what, you can go forward, you can do it. And not only that, we're counting on you to do it. And I think that that's what Nas's body of work really gives us.
And can I add something? It's very, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking. That was very nice. Thanks.
You know, and our people need that right now. You know, we have a paradox within the black community. Since Dr. King was killed in 1968, the black upper middle class has quadrupled in size because of affirmative action. You know, I went to Yale 1969, Nas. I entered with 96 black kids. The class that graduated in 1966 had 6 black people, black men. What was it, genetic blip in the race, and all of a sudden there are 90 smart black people who didn't exist 3 years before? Of course not. Affirmative action. And those results, that's why Marcy and I are here. You know, we're that affirmative action generation. But at the same time, 35% of all black children live at or beneath the poverty line. You know what it was the day Dr. King was killed? About 35%. And we have more black men in prison now than we had when Dr. King was alive. So it's the best of times, it's the worst of times, as Charles Dickens put it. And we need to fight the structural causes of poverty and racism, but also we need a revolution within the black community. You know, we need to encourage people. You got to learn your ABCs. You got to learn your multiplication tables. You got to learn computer skills. You know, you don't have to have. We have to cut down on teenage pregnancies, out of wedlock births, et cetera, et cetera. You know, you have to take responsibility for yourself. No white man's going to come in on a white horse and save us anymore. And as you can see from the way the Tea Party treats the president, no black man can ride in on a white horse and save us. We have to go to a great extent, we have to save ourselves. And that's the message that I get from your work. It's inspiring, man. It's inspiring.
Thanks. You're inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
You too, Marcy.
So looking into the nuts and bolts of this fellowship, who can apply? Are there any specific credentials that you guys are looking for considering applicants?
Well, Marcy determines who gets these fellowships. So if y'all want to bribe her, she's subject to bribe.
Not true. You know, in general, the fellowship, you have to meet the requirements of the general fellowship that's also at the Du Bois Institute. So there are basically 2 types of fellowship applications that we anticipate. One is someone who is a professor at a university and has the leave that Professor Gates talked about and is available and has been working in hip-hop in some way, in terms of hip-hop research, in terms of focusing on some aspect of that. A number of people try to patch hip-hop in. Those people don't get fellowships, okay? It's like, if it's going to be the Nasir Jones Fellowship, it's got to be someone who's been consistently working and building within this context. The other interest is with artists, especially artists who are working on projects that are designed to move our notion of not just archiving ideas about hip-hop, but really presenting the creativity and some of the amazing kinds of connections that hip-hop has made throughout one's career, but also throughout their community and the world. So we're really looking for artists who are doing those things. We're not looking for artists who are putting together some sort of recording, because I think there are many venues for that. This is really about how we make sure we're fulfilling hip-hop's promise and supporting those who are very interested in making sure that we are doing things in hip-hop that really reflect the idea of the title of Nas's album, Life is Good, in that the notion of life is good is not about, it's this cheery, beautiful place. It's like, it's the life we have, it's the life we're negotiating, it's the life we're working, and we make a contribution, right? We have social responsibility, but as an artist, you have creative responsibility. You don't just stay in a space and say, I'm only going to do this. Our expectation is that you continue to create, because as human beings who are in this world working hard and wanting a better place, we really need our artists. And one of the things that's sad is that there was a period of time where we considered art as not part of our life, as not part of our being, not part of our culture. But it's absolutely fundamental, I think, in us understanding not just what's going on in the world as our artists talk about it and analyze it and give us all sorts of reasons to discuss it, but that also makes us really want to, change this world and make this world a better place for us and future generations. It's like hip hop really takes on that, I think, and I no longer remember what the question was, but I think
that was a great answer.
That was great.
So with regard to students contributing to the hip-hop tradition, what are the sorts of projects or scholarship that individuals can pursue?
Well, students themselves, what this fellowship does, and when the fellowship was announced, we received so many calls from kids. And we have a lot of the emails, and we're trying to figure out what to do with it, because they were so sweet and moving. And I don't know how some of these really young kids know about Nas. Clearly their parents have made it clear. Someone was telling me that there's someone who works here who learned to speak English by Illmatic. Was that you, Sandra? Right. Yeah, Illmatic, she learned to speak English. And so it's just, and that's the best English to learn, actually. Let me just say, it's the best way to learn. But so many kids were inspired by the idea of a place like Harvard. Nas is here. It's like I can do this, and so we're really supporting that. We're also encouraging students to do research projects and to think about their particular disciplines and their majors, and how hip hop and the different the multidisciplinary nature of hip-hop, to speak in real academic terms, really fits into a lot of the things that they're doing. One of my criticisms of education has been that young kids in urban areas in education are just often defined as at risk. They don't have any other identity. And having come from an urban area, I realized that when you're a young kid, you're like any other young kid. You think you can really do things in the world. You have dreams. You have aspirations. You want to create. You write poetry. I used to write poetry every day. Unfortunately, it was all about, my mother, and my mother didn't like all these descriptions of her, but that's another story. But we're writing, we're reciting, we're doing all that, and we don't want to then end up in school and be boxed as this at-risk kids, because all people see is that we're not from, we don't have this socioeconomic background. You see what we don't have, you don't see what we have. And really encouraging students and researchers and academics to think more deeply about what we really are doing in this world and what we're doing in our careers, and to really encourage students to do that kind of work and to focus is so much a part of what this is about.
Yeah, one of the things I hope is that many of our students, Nas, not only aspire to participate in hip hop on the scholarly end, which is analysis, on the creative end, the artistic end, like you, but you got to be a genius in order to be like you, but also on the production end. Yeah, I remember when, in about 1960 or so, I was reading Jet magazine. I was 10 years old, and it said Willie Mays makes $124,000 a year. That was a lot of money. I went to my father and I said, "Man, Daddy, $124,000 a year." And you know what he said? He said, "You want to be the man who could pay Willie Mays $124,000 a year." And that changed my life. I never forgot that. The means of production. You know, we need more people producing albums. We need more people producing, greenlighting films. You know, I want more people, black, white, whatever, but with a sensitivity to our needs, our interests, our culture, be able to say, yes, this is a good idea, and I'm going to give you $1 million. You know, I'm going to fund your film project. And that's, Harvard produces people in all of those categories. And so I'm hoping, that's what I hope one of the inspirations of the Hip Hop Archive is, the production end as well as the artistic end, as well as the scholarly part as well.
That's great.
And for you, Mr. Jones, how do you feel that the creation of this fellowship will inspire other educational institutions and other audiences to promote this culture?
It's going to make them want to appreciate the culture. It's going to make them want to look into what we're doing and see how they can do something similar or add on. You know, it's like what Skip was saying. It's like we're taking it to another level, and this has never been done. So first you see this, and then next thing you know, sky's the limit. You know, when we're talking about green lighting films, you know, it's just seeing an influx of like black films happening around this year with, you know, Best Holiday coming out, and I'm in a musical, Black Nativity, coming out with Forrest Whitaker and a great cast, 12 Years a Slave and Butler. It's starting to open a lane. The lanes are starting to open up right now. And culturally in America, they're starting to want to see other American stories other than just one story. So this one, I hope it opens up that lane. This thing we're doing, I hope it opens that up so that every story is told, everyone can be inspired and then be uplifted.
Nothing breeds imitation like success. And the reason that this might genuinely be black film renaissance is because these films are making money. These guys aren't doing this for goodwill or the contribution to the NAACP. This is about the Benjamins. And when The Butler makes, you know, $264,000, and 12 Years a Slave is no doubt going to win a lot of awards, and it's going to reopen in January. My own series is now airing on PBS over the 6 weeks in the history of the African American community. It's got unprecedented ratings. These things matter, and what it means is that there will be this is America, this is capitalism. Right. As long as you score in the marketplace, there are other opportunities out there for you guys. And Nas is absolutely right. Like it or not, I didn't even go to Harvard. I went to Yale. But like it or not, as Harvard goes, so goes a big chunk of the nation academically. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are not more hip-hop archives and more HipHop Fellowships, et cetera, et cetera. And it was very important. What was important about what Marcy did politically, see, back in the day, when the Panthers were walking around, you know, we were going on strike for the Black Panthers at Yale. We were worried about how we could be ourselves, intellectuals, be at these white power institute. I call them historically white colleges and universities because that's what these things were, and still be black, still be political. But there are a lot of ways, students and young people, to make a political contribution without carrying a picket sign, right? And being able to shape how America and the world perceives a fundamental aspect of African American culture. That is a political contribution. so that they realize that this is an art form. This is a contribution to world civilization. That's a very important thing, too. And having it taught, enshrined, endowed at Harvard gives it a cachet within the academy. Not that it needed it, but this is a fact. It just gives it a cachet within the academy that is very, very important and will have legs. And I'm very proud of that. And again, that's Marcy's great contribution. You see, to understand how important what Marcy did in terms of creating this thing, think about if a person in 1925 had the brilliant idea, there was this new music. Most black upper class people thought this new music was vulgar. Duke Ellington's Jungle Band, hello? What are you talking about? This is not going to be in the salons and parlors of the Harlem Renaissance. You could read Alain Locke's magnificent anthology, The New Negro, published in 1925, which was the manifesto of the Harlem Renaissance. It's like 500 pages of one little teeny essay about jazz, saying it was like bordello music, lower class music, and a passing fad. But if someone had said, no matter what you think of it, this is going to be a world phenomenon, so let's start the jazz archive at Harvard. Today, we would say that man or woman was a genius. That's what Marcy did. People said, hip-hop archive, what are you talking about? I said, this is brilliant. And so does the universe.
I just want to say something. I don't think I'm a genius or particularly brilliant, but I think what I really have learned is that you surround yourself with people like that, and you get all this credit. But what I also want to say is, who are these people that I surrounded myself with? I ended up doing the archive because of two different groups of people. One, my students, when I started teaching at UCLA, who, when they were graduating, would say, I collected this. This is from hip hop. You have to keep it. If I leave it at home, my mother's going to throw it away when I leave. She thinks, so would you keep it? So I started having all this stuff. And I was like, okay, so what am I going to do? And I'm a linguistic anthropologist. Anthropologists love material culture. I couldn't throw it away. I could see this was important, so I wrote a grant so that I could have some money so that I could keep it. And then it was, what do you call it? And then all these students were like, well, I think it should be called an archive because an archive is important and all. So all of that. The other group, so you have these students, but the other group were mothers. I cannot tell you how many mothers would come up to me and say, do you know something about hip hop? My son, my daughter loves it. You must do something. You must do something. I started off working with women, and I remember being in Mississippi and listening to people, some kids were repairing a car, and the radio was all that worked on this car, and it was only hip hop. And I was thinking, I didn't expect to go to the backwood of Mississippi to do my research on women and get away from hip hop and hear hip hop every minute of the day. And the women who I wanted to interview, when we got together, said they said we've met and we've decided that we're not going to accept because there was some stipend for participating. You give it to our kids and talk to them about hip hop because they care about that. And so I moved into working on hip hop because of those two groups of people who really inspired me. And the ideas really consistently have always come from that kind of energy and working with students and working with parents who always cared. They may not have understood it, but they did understand it was doing something for their kids. And I've always respected that. So in terms of what we have here, it's really because of the energy and the passion of that relationship between students and their families who cared. And, and just keeping going on. So I just want to publicly just say that the Hip Hop Archive exists because of hip hop and people operating, within hip hop, and that Nas is so much a part of the symbol and the energy of all that, and how it should work, how it could work, how we can dream about it working, and how we have to keep going with doing it. And so I am really thankful to everyone who's contributed to so much of this.
So this is going to be a broader question, but what is the future of hip hop as scholarship and art is being incorporated into this movement? Where do we see hip hop developing in the American context and also internationally?
Well, I really wonder what do you think about that question, Nasir?
Yeah.
Is one thing's for sure. When I was a kid, people thought it would just be around for a little while and then go away, and then it survived, and I kept watching it grow and grow, and it became so big that a lot of the roots of it would get lost because it was so commercial. And then I put out an album called Hip Hop Is Dead, and basically just to ring an alarm to everyone to remember this is something special. Let's let it get big, but let's not let it get so big that we lose control of it and it just goes away, because the integrity of it was lost. So, I mean, that was years ago when I put out that record. This thing is growing and growing, and it's not becoming so commercial that we're going to lose it. There are young artists that are coming out every day that are really good, and they're inspiring the next generation to come. So I really don't see hip-hop going away anytime soon. I see it going into the future, and hip-hop is very competitive. So although there's lots of it that's not good, there's a good part of it where there's some really good lyrics out there, and those records inspire the new guys to be even better. So hip-hop is about being the best, right? You want to be the best. I'm the best rapper. So kids want to be the best at something. If you want to get into hip-hop, you're getting in to be the best, So that's what keeps it alive, the competitive spirit. So there's a very healthy future for hip-hop music. Internationally, we say hip-hop is America's best export. Is our best, the best thing that we give to the world. You know what I'm saying? It's other people have Porsches and shoes, and what we give to everyone is the truth about Compton. You might read about LA if you live in New Zealand or whatever. You can read about LA and Los Angeles, but if you listen to Straight Outta Compton, you might know it tells you how to survive once it gives you the story that's not in the text and the books and stuff. We give you the real. So as long as real is means something, hip hop will mean something.
Yeah, I first realized that what a worldwide phenomenon was, hip hop was, before I met Marcy. Actually, Marcy converted me to hip hop, but I realized, just as an observer, what a phenomenon it was in January 1993. And it was 2 weeks before the inauguration of William Jefferson Clinton as President of the United States. And I was with two other Harvard professors in China. And we were chosen to lecture for 3 weeks. And we went to Taiwan, Hong Kong, Guangzhou, Beijing, and then Ulaanbaatar. Ulaanbaatar is the capital of Mongolia. And we were there on January 16th. And it was minus 42 degrees Celsius. If you're ever on Jeopardy and they ask where Fahrenheit and Celsius meet, it's at minus 42. And it is cold, man. I mean, that is, my leather in my shoes just disintegrated, man. It was so cold. And so I never felt further away from home. And we went to this a lecture at Mongolian State University. The president had an MSU pin on it. Cracked me up, in Mongolia. In Mongolia, to tell you how alien it is, 40% of the people of Mongolia live in tents, felt tents called yurts. All right? I mean, it's a whole nother thing, man. So I asked the audience, how many of you people, it was like 200 people. I said, how many people here have heard of William Jefferson Clinton? Now, the title of the lecture was The Social Implications of the Election of Bill Clinton, William Jefferson Clinton, and Albert Gore. said, how many of you all know anything about Bill Clinton? Nobody raised their hand. I said, how many people have heard of Two Live Crew? Everybody raised their hand. And that was 1993. And I realized, and then when we watched TV, there were, Asian hip hop guys, dressed up like, what you call it? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like ninjas and stuff, doing hip hop. Like, God damn, look at this. People lost their mind. This is amazing. Then brain got frozen, brain freeze. And I realized that it was a world phenomenon. And, in a way that I never would have understood had I not gone to Ulaanbaatar. And so you're right. It's America's greatest cultural export. It is the lingua franca of American popular culture, and it's created a universal language of that everyone shares, even in Cuba. I go to Cuba all the time, and Nas is a superstar in Cuba. In fact, we're going to go. Marcy and Larry and I and the faculty went, and Nas and I were just talking. He'd like to go, so I think we should take it. That'd be great.
Yes. Love to go to Cuba.
That'd be cool. Get Fidel, you doing some hip hop.
So in terms of longevity, what are the specific aspects do you guys think adds to almost like the life of hip hop that makes it resonate with so many different audiences in the world?
Well, I think in terms of longevity, I mean, as Nas was saying, it's hip hop is competitive, and there's always change. You're always trying to get better. You're trying to get, this notion of highest possible level. When I started with the archive at universities, of course, my colleagues were awful. Okay, they were just so critical. It's like that, and with it, and they used to say, and they're always talking about keeping it real. We can't keep anything real. It's not possible to be real. What do they mean by real? Don't they understand how complicated reality is? Whatever, So it was like, oh boy, and as you saw hip-hop grow and develop, what you also saw was hip-hop kept working on those concepts at incredibly deep philosophical and ideological levels, right? So it just kept going. And talk about science, and hip-hop and all this. All of that kept growing and changing. And as you got through these changes, you then, in going forward, and you think about the lyricism, you think about the narrative, you think about the way that DJs and producers really started working. You think about how everyone started. It was get in where you fit in. It's like if there's no reason not to do something because you don't have what all the rich kids have. Do it and work on that. And in an academic setting, that is really important. It's like you keep going. In parts of the world where you have nothing but a dream, where you have no rights, where you know that life can be better, you try for it. You work at it, because you've got this imprint. When you talk about lingua franca, you've got it, okay? And all of that is there because hip-hop keeps growing and adjusting and working on, because artists want to be at the top of their game of representing what's happening in their world, your world, our world. And that's really what academics is about, or should be, the highest possible level, real competition. Let's see. And the joy of it as being a part of that. And to teach all of those elements, I think, is really important. And is what's happening, at least from my perspective.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, think about jazz is a century old, almost. Why shouldn't hip-hop last a century? What do you think, Nas? When your great-great-grandfather, your great-great-grandchildren be rapping and calling you old school?
They might. Some call me old school now. Yeah, they just might. I was telling my friend a while back, he's a rapper, and he's like, yo, we were like late 20s, and he was like, we were about to be 30, and he's like, I want to own some car wash. I don't want to rap no more. We can't be doing this in our 30s. I want to go to car wash or something. I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, no, this is backwards. You clean your car. You buy cars. You stay a rapper. You buy your car and send them through the car wash, bro. But what he was saying was we can't do this forever, and he was really wrong. And I said, no, we're gonna be 40, 50, 60 years old at Carnegie Hall, suits on, watching Snoop perform, and it's going to get to that level. And I saw him recently, and we brought up that conversation. He's like, you were right. It's like this thing is going to become an older thing. It's going to become that thing that I'm gonna be a grandfather and still want to come out and still tell my grandkids like this was Biggie and this is he grew up around this and this is what Tupac was about, and I knew those guys, and so this thing is like forever.
And the word that the phenomenon you're describing is institutionalization. Something new, it grows, it survives, it withstands challenges, it mutates, it morphs, and becomes institutionalized. It still doesn't mean that it's moribund, but it replenishes itself. But one form of institutionalization is being studied at a university like Harvard, being preserved in a hip-hop archive, having fellowships created for the geniuses of the genre, like Nas Jones. That's what you're witnessing. You're witnessing a crucial moment in the institutionalization of a cultural form. And it's quite marvelous to be here at the creation. When Marcy and Nas were talking in different ways about hip-hop aspiring to be the best, well, when anyone that wants to know why the Hip Hop Archive should be at Harvard, why the Nas Jones Fellowship should be at Harvard, what institution in the world has claimed more that it aspires to be and is the best than Harvard University? So hip hop and Harvard are matched totally through that claim.
Well, do you guys have any closing remarks with regard to the fellowship that we might not know?
I'd like to thank both Marcy and Skip, you for creating this thing. It took a lot of heart and foresight. It's like this is unbelievable to me, and just really want to commend you for really seeing the path and creating this path for me and others to walk through, and for Skip for helping bring me in, and I got to tell you, just the fact that Harvard, kids that love hip-hop, seeing Harvard embrace hip-hop changes their world. And it changes the entire world on top of that. Maybe 15 years ago, if I was given this opportunity, if I would have said no, because I was the young, keep it real dude, and I didn't trust anything. I didn't trust anything outside of the demographic or the world that I lived in. I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about politics. I didn't care about America that much. I didn't care that much because I didn't believe that it believed in me. So to me, this thing is just like, it shows you how much I've grown. It shows you that you can exist in America, that America it is available to you. You can become whatever you want to become in this great country. And the tables have turned for me and for my peers in rap music. We took advantage of this art form and we're pushing it. And you see all these entrepreneurs in hip hop today because, we lasted this long. So today, thank God I'm here. I made it through the storm, and I'm really happy to be here. And this is an amazing honor for myself, and if I may say so, to hip hop too.
Oh man, give it up! Give it up! That's beautiful. You're a poet.